You're listening to The Manning Report with your host, James David Manning, the news behind the headlines.
Lindsey Graham, during the days of the Nixon impeachment, made a statement regarding Nixon refusing to honor subpoenas from Congress. And he makes it emphatically that Nixon's actions were actions worthy of impeachment simply by defying and denying the subpoenas that the first branch of government, the Congress, was requesting information from Nixon, and he denied it. Now we got the vice president, Mike Pence, who's going down with Trump, and we got Bill Barr and others who are likewise denying subpoenas. But look at what Lindsey Graham said during his early days in Congress when Nixon was being impeached as to what he's doing and saying now in supporting Tribulation Trump. Mr. Engineer, I think it's clip number 2.
The day Richard Nixon failed to answer that subpoena is the day that he was subject to impeachment, because he took the power from Congress over the impeachment process away from Congress, and he became the judge and jury.
You see? That's exactly what Trump is doing now. And Lindsey Graham is in full-throated support of Trump doing what he said that Nixon did that was worthy of impeachment. So to understand this, I see people scratching their heads and they're trying to discover, well, why is it that these actions are taking place? You have to understand them in the context of Trump being pathological, wholly and completely he's incorrigible. He cannot be, you can't train him to act differently. Trump is a human crime wave. Now, he was a one-man crime wave. He was that when he was in New York real estate, but it was real estate. It was a cutthroat business. He had a ton of lawyers. He had Roy Cohn. He had Michael Cohen. He would sue. He'd pay off judges. He'd pay off politicians. But he was a crime wave, even in New York. As a real estate developer, he was a crime wave. He filed for bankruptcy 7 times. He didn't pay his bills. You know, he raped women. He was a crime wave, but he was off to the side, you know, a New York playboy. But now he's president of the United States, and the fact that he is a human one-man crime wave continues. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. But I think one needs to step back and look at the fact that what is really going on is the biblical fruition of the tribulation. And I'm not going to read the passages to you now because you're probably not interested in them. And the other thing I think is important is that, you know, I've been musing about this now for several weeks, and that is to say, is that, well, not just musing, but actually the Spirit of the Lord has been telling me to say, just keep saying what you're saying, because, you know, I think Alex Jones asked me late into the Obama administration, shortly after Obama was elected, he said, how did you know that Obama was going to be as bad as he is? How did you know that? And a lot of people ask me that question. How did I have the foresight? Because nobody was saying what I was saying about Obama. Nobody was really saying it, except I. What the Lord is telling me to say, it just keeps saying, most people aren't listening to me right now. They're not going to put this on any major news work. The New York Times is not going to come and interview me about this whole business of 15% of the world's population dominated the other 85%. Listen, we're only now about, America itself is only about 5% of the world population, yet we consume more than 25% of the world's goods and drugs. You see what I'm saying? Nobody's paying any attention, but the Lord said, just keep saying it. And that's why you say, why are you doing these long monologues now? All this business that you're doing now, because I'm just putting it on the record. I'm putting it on the record. I'm getting it established. Most people aren't going to pay attention. Very few people want to hear this, and very few people even believe me. But white people know that their autonomy is gone. And the reality of it is that we're living in a black and a brown world with just a spot of white. And it is a part of the tribulation. It is the sense of the destruction, the great destruction plan of God. And so I'm just going to keep saying it. And at some point in time, the records will be pulled up of the prophecies of the things I've said. You know, I said when we were in Niagara Falls, I wrote a tweet that Giuliani was going to turn state's evidence and going to tell everything he knows about Trump. I said that 2 weeks ago. Now we see that is very likely. And when it does happen, that tweet will be pulled up. Maybe someone will pull it up and they'll say, you know, the good Dr. Manning told us this weeks ago, months ago. He told us this was going to happen. So I think that if you're looking at what's happening in the world today with respect to our government, why Trump is doing what he's doing, first of all, he's pathologically incapable. He is incorrigible. He does not have the ability to do other than what he's doing. You can't change him. He cannot grow. And I suppose probably for Trump, it is a point of frustration, because if he ever thinks about some of the pain of what's happening to him, which ultimately will cause him to commit suicide, he might wonder, why can't I change? Have you ever had a problem or a bad habit, or maybe just trying to lose weight, but maybe you've had a bad habit and you want to get rid of it. You don't want to be like that. You don't want to be that person. You want to get rid of that bad habit. And you try, and the more you try, the more you fail. Has that ever happened to you? That you just can't shake. It seems that you're incorrigible. It seems that you're doomed. It seems that you're cursed. And you just can't move the needle on that bad habit. Well, Trump is cursed. He cannot be different. He cannot. There is no way he can be anybody. There is not one bit of difference between Trump, the New York casino owner, and Trump, the president, in terms of the quality of the person. He can't. He's cursed. He's cursed with a curse. And what's worse, he doesn't even understand what he's doing with those people. So again, dynamic number one. Dynamic number two is white people used to rule the world, and they don't rule anymore. And I think one of the reasons why the other Japheth of white people, who are the Democrats or the liberals or the LGBT crowd, will not make this a major public statement or even talk to me about it, because if they began to push this theory, because they're white too, and they're Jewish. There's some Jews that are white. They're not Jews, but they're Jews, but they act white. But listen to this. If the media began to push the truth that I'm speaking now, and they have better resources to dig up the historical, they could go through the Boxer Revolution, how America was thrown out of China. They could go through the British rule of 150,000 Brits taking over 1 billion people in India. They could do that a whole lot better than I could potentially ever think. They got the resources. They got the megaphones to do it. They're not going to do it. You know why they're not? Even the liberal whites, even the Elizabeth Warrens and the Joe Bidens, they're not going to do it. The Pete Buttigieg, the white people, the rich white people, the rich Jews, the Goldman Sachs, they're not going to push this information out there. And the reason why they're not going to push this information out there is because reason number one, and reason number one only, is because if they began to push it, the black and brown people of the world would believe it. And the black and brown people will say, you just handed us your future. You just told us y'all are not in charge anymore. NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, they are not going to tell black and brown people around the planet that they're not in charge anymore. They're not going to do it. So you got these dynamics. You got the one, on the one hand, you got the redneck whites, or the deplorables, as Trump, as Hillary calls them, the 30 to 40 million Trump supporters who are not saying that either. They're saying Jews will not replace us, because they don't want to say blacks will replace us. and they're pushing Trump to try to maintain their autonomy and their white supremacy. And then on the other group of Japheth or white people, the liberals, the LGBT crowd, the business owners, they're not going to say it at all. Because if they did, the people in the Caribbean, the people in China will wake up, in Africa will wake up and say, wait a minute, you just told us that y'all aren't in charge anymore. Y'all don't rule the world. White supremacy is dead. It's gone. And you're telling us that we're now in charge. You're telling us there's been a changing of the guards, that Hamite and Canaanite people are now ruling the world. I have a place where I buy some Chinese food from time to time. And years ago, well, the young girl that worked in there, every time I went there, her hair was black. Her mother's hair was black. Her aunts and her relatives working there, her uncles, they all had black hair. All of them had black hair. Then the other day I went there, her hair was blonde, bleached blonde. Listen, Chinese and Korean people and Japanese people are not born with blonde hair. It is consistently black. Only Japheth people are born with blonde hair. It is consistently black. So to understand what's happening now in Turkey with ISIS, with Russia, and the reason why Trump is making an alliance with Gog and Magog, and the reason why the Southern Baptists, the evangelicals, are accepting Russia is because Russia is a white nation. Like America is white. It's more white than England. It's more white than America. So I think it's very important that we understand, you know, the Jerry Falwell Juniors of the world, the Franklin Grahams of the world, the Robert Jeffers of the world, the Southern Baptists, the Salem Media, the Pat Robinsons of the world. Listen, they know the Bible, but they know something else. They know that Trump is evil. They know that. But it isn't about the Bible anymore. It is about God. It is about maintaining white supremacy. And they cannot not support. Their life depends upon persons like Trump. But the folly of it is that white supremacy is gone. White autonomy is gone. White people don't rule anymore. White people don't rule anymore. They don't. And by the way, the Democrats and the Republicans, or Obama and Clinton, or Biden and Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren, they are not better than Trump. In many ways, they're worse. I think Obama has done more to destroy humanity than anybody in modern, and by modern, I mean from the time of Christ to present. My personal opinion of Obama is that Judas would be considered a saint, because at least Judas was a believer in Jesus. My personal opinion of Obama, and I know that many you blacks and other people, you get offended by that. But Judas would be considered a saint compared to what Obama has done to the Bible, to Jesus, and to Moses, and to Negroes. But having said that, I think it's important that we understand we're in the tribulation. No, this message is not going to make the headlines of the Washington Post. It isn't. It's not going to be a part of breaking news on CNN, but it's the only truth that's out there. Everything else is a bunch of people. Don't you get sick and tired of watching a panel of people sit on television and they all give their various ideas. They do it on CNN, they do it on MSNBC, they do it on Fox. One guy, the commentator, the host will sit there, he's got 4 people, they'll sit there and they'll pontificate, they'll chew up on this, they'll give their various ideas, and getting nowhere. It is absolute madness what's happening with white people. And I don't say this in a way that is pejorative. I don't say it in a way that represents that I'm a hater of white people. I'm just calling a white a white and a black, or calling a spade, or milk a milk, a white a white. I don't hate. That's not my intent. And if I say it with passion, hell, I'm a passionate person, and I need to deliver with strength. And white people's days are over with. And they run up here to Harlem to try to crush me. But you can count, they don't colonize. White people don't own Africa. I mean, 100 years ago, England ruled Africa and India. It stole all the resources, got wealthy as dogs. I mean, and they tried it with China. It didn't last very long. They took all the resources of the islands, the South America. And then they came to America and killed the Chippewa, they killed the Sioux, the Blackfoot, the Cheyenne. You know, they Cherokee. White people don't rule anymore. And what we see with Trump is a last-ditch effort to wrap it all up. I think the next segment we ought to be talking about, well, where do we go from here? I've got the answer. You know I do. But I think it's important that we've had this discussion today. It's important. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.